buckle up, everybody, because today we are going on a deep dive into time.
Time, yes.
And not just, looking at your watch time, but like the kind of time that makes you question,
everything.
Yeah. Whole existence.
Absolutely.
So it's a big one.
It is a big one. And, you sent over this really fascinating book, Time, A Cultural History and Practical Guide.
Yeah.
And clearly you're someone who already thinks about this stuff a lot.
Well, I think it's something that we all think about in one way or another, right? Because it is so fundamental to our experience.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
And as you said, it's not just about checking your watch. It's about how we perceive time,
Right.
how different cultures have viewed time throughout history, and how those perceptions shape societies and beliefs.
Yeah, and even today, right? Like how different those perceptions can be.
Oh, absolutely. And it's something that I'm really excited to dive into today.
Yes, you.
But I think to really appreciate the complexities of time, we need to kind of strip away.
And all of our preconceived notions and sort of imagine a world before clocks, before calendars, before any of those things.
Whoa, okay. So like starting from scratch.
Yeah, going back to the basics.
Yeah.
Like imagine ancient civilizations, like the Egyptians, for example.
Yeah.
They relied on the stars and the flooding of the Nile to mark the passage of time.
Oh, wow.
They actually built these massive obelisks.
I was just thinking like sundials or something.
Yeah.
Giant sundial.
Exact giant sundials,
Oh, yeah.
essentially,
Right.
to track the hours.
That's incredible. I mean, that must have taken so much ingenuity to figure out.
Absolutely. And it really highlights how in tune they were with the natural world,
Total. Like their lives were literally dictated by
the rhythms of nature.
the sun and the stars and the river.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It is. And their concept of time was vastly different from ours, too.
Okay, how so?
Well, they divided their day into 10 hours of daylight and 12 hours of darkness,
Oh, interesting.
which was directly tied to the observable cycles of the sun, of course.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But I mean, it does make you wonder, like, what did that do to their sense of work-life balance? I mean, did they have a completely different...
I think that's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
And it speaks to this, like, inherent cultural bias we bring to our understanding of time.
Oh, for sure.
What we consider efficient or productive
Right.
is shaped by the way we measure and value time, which itself is a product of cultural evolution.
Okay, so time isn't some, like, universal constant.
Yeah.
It's really just
It's a construct
the construct, yeah.
built upon layers of cultural and historical influence.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
So let's move on to another ancient civilization,
Okay.
the Greeks.
Okay.
They developed these fascinating water clocks called clepsydras.
Cedrus.
Yeah, have you heard of those?
I haven't. Tell me about those.
So basically, imagine using the steady drip of water
What?
to measure time.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
That's really clever.
Like, how did they I can't even imagine coming up with that idea.
I know, it's pretty ingenious, right?
Yeah, it is.
And they were surprisingly versatile.
Okay.
Like, they were used to time speeches in public assembly.
Oh, okay.
They were used to regulate market hours.
So people couldn't cheat, okay.
Yeah, and even in Roman courts, they played a role
Oh.
in ensuring a fair allocation of time for argument.
Okay, so they understood the importance of fairly measuring and allocating time.
They did.
Okay. So even back then,
Some things never changed.
right, some things never changed.
And speaking of the Romans, right.
Okay.
They were the ones who brought us the Julian calendar.
Oh, the Julian calendar.
Yeah.
I remember that from history class.
Vaguely.
Vaguely, yeah.
But this was a major step towards standardizing time
Okay.
across wider geographical areas.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And Julius Caesar, a man known for his
Order.
desire for order, exactly. He pushed for this calendar.
To more accurately align with the solar year.
Okay.
So that was a big step forward.
But even still, I imagine at this point, timekeeping is still pretty localized, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Back then, each town or city essentially operated on its own time,
Right.
dictated by the position of the sun.
Okay.
So you can imagine the logistical nightmare of trying to coordinate anything across long distances.
Oh, I can only imagine it would just be chaos.
Yeah, total chaos.
Yeah.
So that brings us to a major turning point in our relationship with time, the Industrial Revolution.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, so think about it. Trains needed to run on time.
Yeah.
Factories needed to operate on precise schedule.
Of course.
And long-distance communication had to be synchronized.
Right, yeah.
So this era gave birth to standardized time zones
Okay.
and the global adoption of Greenwich Mean Time.
Oh, wow.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we totally take for granted now, but like back then, that must have just been like
It was revolutionary.
revolutionary. Yeah, it must have been like a massive mental shift for people to think of time as this like rigid global thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Before standardized time, people's lives were very much governed by the natural rhythms of day and night.
Right.
The Industrial Revolution brought about this new era where the clock ruled supreme.
Oh, yeah.
So efficiency became the paramount virtue, and a sense of urgency kind of took hold.
I feel like that just like I mean, that totally makes sense, but that also feels like the start of like a lot of the problems that we have today,
I think you're right. Yeah.
where we just like always feel like we're rushing
Yeah.
and never have enough time. And
That obsession with efficiency and productivity has only intensified, I think, in our digital age.
oh, absolutely.
Right.
100%.
I mean, we live in a world where we're constantly connected,
Yeah.
constantly bombarded with information.
And like expected to be available 24/7.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's no wonder we feel like time is constantly slipping away from us.
Yeah, it's almost like a paradox, right? We have all these tools now, calendars, reminders, all these productivity apps,
Yeah, more tools than ever before.
but yet we feel more time starved than ever.
It's true.
It's like time itself is accelerated or something.
It's a classic example of how technology, while offering these incredible advancements, right,
Yeah.
can also create new challenges and anxiety. The digital age has brought about this sense of immediacy and instant gratification,
Totally.
which has, in many ways, I think, distorted our perception of time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So are we truly in control of our time anymore, or is it controlling us?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
It's something that a lot of people are grappling with today.
Yeah.
But before we get too deep into that rabbit hole,
Okay.
let's kind of step back and consider how different cultures still perceive time in vastly different ways.
Okay. Yeah.
The book mentions this concept of island time.
Island time.
Yeah, have you heard of that?
I've heard of that. Yeah, I've never experienced it.
Yeah. Well, it's a perfect illustration of how cultural values can shape our relationship with time.
Okay.
Right. So in some cultures, there's this more relaxed, less schedule-driven approach to life.
Right.
Which is a stark contrast to the always-on, fast-paced mentality that we often find in Western.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. It's fascinating how something as seemingly universal as time can be experienced so differently.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It really challenges our assumptions about what constitutes a normal or productive relationship with time.
It does. It really does.
Yeah.
It-
And this is where things get really interesting because
Okay.
understanding these cultural differences is key to developing a more nuanced and effective approach to time management.
Regardless of your background or personality type.
Exactly.
Okay. I am officially hooked now.
Good.
Let's talk about those tools and techniques for managing time more effectively.
Okay, let's do it.
So what are some of the key takeaways from the book that can help us navigate this complex landscape of time?
Well, firstly, and I think this is really important to understand, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to time management.
Makes sense.
What works for one person might not work for another.
Yeah.
The key is to find what works for you and be consistent with it.
All right, so self-awareness is key here.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all about self-awareness
Okay.
and finding the right tools that align with your individual needs and preferences.
What are some of the specific techniques that the book suggests?
Well, one of the most popular and effective techniques is the Pomodoro technique.
The Pomodoro technique.
Okay. Yeah, have you heard of that?
I've heard of it.
It's a surprisingly simple but powerful method,
Okay.
and it involves working in focused 25-minute intervals
Okay.
separated by short breaks.
So it's all about like breaking down these large tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a clever way to overcome procrastination and maintain focus for longer periods.
That makes sense. It's almost like you're tricking your brain
It is.
into feeling a sense of accomplishment and momentum
Yeah.
as you check off those smaller milestones.
And it works.
Yeah.
It really does.
What other helpful tips does the book offer?
Well, it also emphasizes the importance of prioritizing tasks.
Okay.
Right? You need to identify what truly matters
Of course.
and learn to say no to the things that aren't essential.
Oh, the dreaded art of saying no.
Right.
That's always been a struggle for me.
I get it. It's hard.
Yeah. I tend to feel obligated to say yes to everything and everyone.
Yeah, I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah.
But it's absolutely crucial to protect your time and energy.
If you don't, you're just going to end up feeling overwhelmed and burned out. Okay, that's a good reminder.
Yeah.
But what about those of us who are just naturally time challenged?
Well, those who struggle with procrastination
Yeah.
and disorganization.
No matter how hard we try.
Yeah. Are we just destined for a life of missed deadlines and frantic scrambling?
Yeah, exactly.
No, not at all. I don't think so.
Okay, good.
The book offers some excellent strategies for those who struggle with time management.
Like what?
Well, things like creating visual schedules,
Oh, okay.
breaking down tasks into smaller bite-sized steps,
Okay.
and using timers to stay on track
Oh, okay.
can be incredibly helpful.
I like that. I like the idea of visual schedules because sometimes I just need to see it laid out in front of me
Right.
to truly grasp what needs to be done.
Yeah.
Like creating a roadmap for your day.
Exactly. And visual schedules can provide that
Yeah.
clear overview of how you're spending your time,
Right.
which can help you identify those areas where you might be wasting precious time.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's really about becoming more aware of our own time habits
Yeah.
and finding the right tools and techniques to manage our time more effectively. And The book emphasizes that time management is an ongoing process.
Okay.
It's not something you master overnight.
Right.
It takes practice and experimentation
Of course.
to find what works best for you.
Makes sense.
But the effort is worth it, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Because ultimately mastering our time allows us to live more fulfilling and productive lives.
Percent, yeah.
Yeah.
When you learn to manage your time effectively, you gain a sense of control over your life.
Oh, yeah.
You're no longer at the mercy of the clock.
Yeah.
You're the one in charge.
I like that. That's a really empowering thought.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, but we've only just scratched the surface
Oh, we
of
have.
this fascinating topic of time.
Yeah, there's so much more to explore.
There really is, yeah. And there's so much more to explore in this book, Time, a cultural history and practical guide.
Absolutely.
But before we journey further down this rabbit hole of time,
Yes.
I'd love to hear about that story you mentioned earlier, about the medieval monks and their bells.
Oh, yeah, that's a fascinating anecdote. And it really illustrates how this human fascination with time
Okay.
transcends cultures and centuries.
Yeah.
So these monks,
Yeah.
meticulous in their devotion,
Okay.
they use bells to mark the hours of the day.
Oh, wow.
And they even had a specific bell
Yeah.
rung every hour, 24 hours a day.
Wow.
Just as a constant reminder of the passage of time.
Wow, that's a powerful image.
It is, isn't it?
Even in a world without clocks and calendars, humans were still
Grappling with this.
grappling with the concept of time
Yeah.
and its implications for their lives. That
Absolutely.
makes you think about how much our relationship with time has evolved
It has.
over the centuries, but yet
Yeah.
how certain core elements remain unchanged.
Yes, and I think that's an important point to remember.
Yeah.
We still feel that pressure, right? To manage our time, to make the most of every hour,
Oh, yeah.
to strive for efficiency and productivity. It's a universal human experience, I think, woven into the very fabric of our existence.
It's a beautiful thing and a terrifying thing at the same time.
Yeah, it's a bit of both, isn't it?
But as we've learned today, we do have more control over our time than we might think.
We do. Yeah.
It's all about understanding the forces at play
Yeah.
and making conscious choices about how we want to spend our most precious resource.
I love that. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, and with that thought in mind, let's kind of shift gears a little bit here.
Okay.
And delve into some of the more mind-bending concepts that the book explores.
All right, I'm ready.
Prepare to have your perceptions challenged
Okay.
as we explore the very nature of time itself.
Sounds like an adventure.
It's going to be a wild ride.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to our deep dive into time.
Those monks really set the stage for this next part of our conversation.
They really do. You know, their dedication to marking time
Yeah.
kind of highlights this enduring human fascination with time and maybe
Our desire to control it.
yes, our desire to control it.
So speaking of controlling time, the book touches on something that's always kind of captured our imagination.
Yeah.
Time travel.
Of course, time travel.
Is it just pure science fiction, or could we actually one day, journey through time?
Well, I mean, the concept of time travel has certainly captivated us for centuries.
Right.
From H.G. Wells' The Time Machine to countless science fiction films.
But is there any real scientific basis for it? Or is it just kind of a fun thought experiment?
Well, it's more than just a fun idea, actually.
Okay.
Einstein's theory of relativity suggests that time isn't absolute,
Okay.
but relative, meaning it can be influenced by things like gravity and velocity.
So theoretically, if you could travel at like incredible speeds or get near a supermassive black hole,
Yeah.
time would actually slow down for you
Yeah.
compared to someone on Earth.
That's the gist of it, yeah.
Well-
And then there's the idea of wormholes, which are these theoretical tunnels through space-time that could potentially connect different points in time.
Okay, so we're wading into some pretty mind-bending physics here.
We are, yeah, we're getting deep into the weeds.
I'm not planning any time travel trips anytime soon, but
Right.
it is fascinating to consider.
It is.
And even if we can't physically travel through time, the book makes it very clear that our perception of time is incredibly subjective.
Absolutely, yeah. Our experience of time is influenced by a multitude of factors. Our age, our emotions, our cultural background, even our current state of mind.
Yeah, the book mentions how time seems to speed up as we get older.
Right.
Is that just because we're running out of time, or is there something else at play?
Well, there's several theories about this.
Okay.
One suggests that as we age, we experience fewer novel events.
Okay.
So think about it. When you're young, everything is new and exciting.
Yeah.
Time seems to stretch out because you're constantly absorbing new information, creating new memories.
Right.
But as we get older, our routines become more set.
Yeah.
And we experience fewer of those first time moments.
And without those novel experiences to mark the passage of time, It just feels like...
You can feel like the years are just blending together.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I've also heard that time seems to slow down when we're in danger.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I remember reading about people who've had near-death experiences,
Right.
and they talk about how everything happened in slow motion.
That's a classic example of how intense emotions can warp our perception of time.
Okay.
So when we're faced with a threat, our brains kind of go into overdrive,
Oh, okay.
processing information at an accelerated rate.
To give us more time to react.
Exactly. And this makes it feel like time is slowing down because we're taking in more details.
Right, yeah.
In a shorter span of time.
Makes sense from an evolutionary perspective.
Right. It's a fascinating adaptation
Yeah.
that can increase our chances of survival in those life or death situations.
Wow, okay, that's really cool.
So it makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
But what about those times when time seems to drag on forever?
Oh, yeah.
Like sitting through a boring meeting or waiting for a delayed flight.
Ugh, yes, the worst.
The worst. In those cases, it's often because we're lacking stimulation.
Okay.
Our brains thrive on novelty and engagement.
Right.
When we're bored, time seems to crawl because there's nothing to keep our minds occupied.
It's like our internal clocks are ticking away
Yeah.
with nothing to measure against.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to find ways to engage our minds, even during those tedious tasks. Whether it's listening to music, letting your mind wander, finding creative solutions to problems.
Right.
Keeping your mind active can help time pass more quickly.
So it's not just about managing our external schedule.
Yeah.
It's also about managing our internal experience of time.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's about finding ways to make time work for us,
Yeah.
rather than feeling like we're constantly at its mercy.
The book also talks about time anxiety, something I think a lot of people struggle with.
A lot of people do. Yeah.
What exactly is it, and how can we overcome it?
Well, time anxiety is that feeling of being perpetually rushed, stressed, and overwhelmed by everything you need to do.
Oh, yeah.
It's that nagging sense that there's never enough time in the day.
I know that feeling all too well.
It's a common experience, I think, in our fast-paced modern world.
It is.
But there are ways to manage time anxiety.
Okay, good.
One is practicing mindfulness, which is paying attention to the present moment without judgment.
Okay.
And this can help reduce stress and create a sense of calm.
So it's about focusing on what you can control rather than dwelling on all the things you can't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another helpful technique is breaking down large tasks into smaller, more manageable steps.
Right.
And this can make them feel less daunting
Great.
and give you a sense of accomplishment as you complete each step.
It's like the old saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Exactly. Yeah, by breaking down our goals into smaller chunks, we can make them feel less overwhelming and more achievable.
We can't talk about time in the modern world without addressing the impact of the digital age.
We can't. No, it's impossible to ignore.
Yeah.
It's no secret that technology has accelerated the pace of life,
It has.
creating this sense of constant urgency and connectedness that can be really draining.
Oh, yeah. It's like we're tethered to the clock, even when we're supposed to be relaxed.
It's true. We live in a world where we're expected to be available 24/7.
Yeah.
With emails, texts, notifications constantly vying for our attention.
It's no wonder so many people feel burned out.
Yeah, I think that that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
The book offers some great tips for setting boundaries with technology.
Okay, like what?
Well, things like designating specific times for checking email and social media,
Okay.
turning off notifications, and even taking digital detox breaks.
I think we could all benefit from a digital detox every now and then.
I agree. It's far too easy to get sucked into that internet vortex and lose all track of time.
But it's important to remember that we have the power to choose how we engage with technology.
We do. We don't have to be slaves to our devices.
Yeah.
We have the power to choose.
That being said, the book also highlights how technology can actually help us manage our time more effectively.
That's true. Yeah, there are some fantastic apps and tools out there
Yeah.
that can help us schedule appointments, track our progress on projects, and even collaborate with others in real time.
I'm a huge fan of online calendars. They've completely revolutionized how I manage my schedule.
They're incredibly helpful. Yeah, I use them all the time.
Yeah.
And there are also apps that can block distraction,
Oh, yeah.
track time spent on different tasks, and even gamify your to-do list.
Gamify my to-do list. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so there are apps that turn your tasks into game, where you earn points or rewards for completing them.
Oh, wow.
And it's a fun way to stay motivated and
Yeah.
make those mundane tasks a bit more enjoyable.
I love that idea that's like tricking your brain into being productive.
Exactly. It taps into our natural desire for rewards and recognition, right?
Yeah.
Which can make the process of managing our time less of a chore.
So technology can be both a blessing and a curse when it comes to time management.
I think that's a great way to put it. Yeah, it's all about using technology intentionally and mindfully,
Right.
rather than letting it control us.
And with that thought in mind, let's shift gears a little bit here.
Okay.
And delve into some of the more mind-bending concepts that the book explored.
Prepare to have your perceptions challenged.
All right, I'm ready.
As we explore the very nature of time itself.
Sounds like quite the adventure.
Lead the way.
Okay, we're back and ready to dive into like the deep end of the time pool here.
Get ready for some serious mind-bending concepts.
I'm excited.
As we explore the very nature of time itself.
I'm a little terrified too, but let's do this.
Okay.
Where do we even begin with something as fundamental as time?
Well, the book challenges our common assumption that time is this linear, forward-marching entity.
Okay.
It points out that this perception is a relatively recent development in human history.
Wait, so you're saying time wasn't always a straight line?
Not necessarily. No.
Okay.
Many ancient cultures viewed time as cyclical.
Okay.
A repeating pattern of birth, death, and rebirth.
So kind of like the seasons changing or the cycles of the moon.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And this cyclical view of time is still reflected in many religious and spiritual traditions today.
That makes sense. But when did this shift to a linear view of time occur?
Well, the transition kind of began with the rise of Christianity,
Yep.
which emphasized a linear timeline with a clear beginning, creation,
Right.
and end, Judgment Day.
Okay.
And this had a profound impact on Western thought.
So our modern perception of time is partly rooted in religious beliefs. That's fascinating.
It is, yeah, and it was further solidified by the scientific revolution of the 17th and 18th century.
Okay.
Think Isaac Newton and his laws of motion.
Ah, Newton, the father of classical physics.
Yeah.
Didn't he view the universe as this like giant clockwork mechanism?
Precisely. Yeah, his work reinforced this idea of time as an absolute and unchanging force that ticked away like a cosmic clock.
And that view has dominated Western thought for centuries.
It has, yeah. But even Newton's laws couldn't explain everything about time.
Okay.
Enter Albert Einstein and his groundbreaking theory of relativity.
Einstein, the ultimate time bender.
Right.
I've heard of his theory, but it's always seemed so abstract to me.
It is mind-boggling, but let me try to explain it simply.
Okay.
Einstein showed that time isn't absolute, but relative.
Okay.
It can be affected by things like gravity and motion.
So time can actually speed up or slow down.
That's right, and it's been proven through experiment.
Really?
Yeah, for example, atomic clocks on airplanes run slightly slower than clocks on the ground
Wow.
due to the difference in velocity.
Okay, that is wild.
Yeah.
So if time is relative, does that mean there's no such thing as a universal present moment?
That's a deep philosophical question.
It is, yeah.
According to Einstein's theory, there's no single point in time that everyone in the universe would agree on as now.
So someone on a distant planet could be experiencing a completely different now than we are.
It's definitely possible.
Wow.
And it gets even weirder when you start considering the concept of multiple dimensions.
Multiple dimensions, like alternate realities and parallel universes.
Not necessarily, but the idea is that there could be other dimensions beyond our familiar 3 dimensions of space
Okay.
and 1 dimension of time.
So like a 4th dimension of time or even more.
Some theories suggest there could be up to 11 dimensions, but what those extra dimensions would be like is anyone's guess.
Okay, that is seriously blowing my mind. It's like something straight out of a science fiction movie.
It does sound fantastical, but the concept of multiple dimensions is taken seriously by many physicists.
Is there any way to prove that these other dimensions actually exist?
Well, scientists are actively looking for evidence. One way is through experiments at the Large Hadron Collider,
Okay.
which smashes particles together at incredible speeds.
Okay.
And they're hoping to create particles that might belong to these other dimensions.
So we might be on the verge of discovering a whole new reality beyond what we can currently perceive.
It's a thrilling possibility.
It is.
And it shows just how much we still don't understand about time and the universe.
All right, I need a moment to wrap my head around all that.
I know, it's a lot to take in.
But before we finish up, let's bring it back to our own lives.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that our perception of time is subjective. What does that mean for us practically?
Well, the key takeaway is that we have more control over our experience of time than we might think.
Okay, how so?
By becoming more aware of the factors that influence our perception of time, we can make choices that allow us to, slow time down when we want to savor a moment or speed it up when we need to get things done.
So like choosing to spend quality time with loved ones, pursuing our passions, or simply taking a moment to appreciate the beauty around us. Those are all ways to slow down time and create lasting memory.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And when we need to be productive, we can use the tools and techniques we discussed earlier to manage our time more effectively and reduce stress.
It's all about finding that balance between savoring the present moment and making progress towards our goal.
You got it.
Okay.
And I think that's a great note to end on.
Yep.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into time.
We have.
From ancient timekeeping methods to the mind-bending theories of modern physics.
It's been an incredible journey.
It has.
And I feel like I have a whole new perspective on this fundamental aspect of our existence.
If you're as fascinated by time as we are,
Yeah.
I highly recommend checking out the book that sparked this conversation. Time, A Cultural History and Practical Guide.
You can find it on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books. It's a thought-provoking read that will challenge your assumptions about time and how it shapes our lives.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep making the most of your time.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.